दर्शकहरू, सग्लो समाज भिडियो म्यागजिन कार्यक्रममा यहाँहरूलाई स्वागत छ। म पाटन दरबारको सुन्दरी चोकमा छु अहिले र आजको हाम्रो विषय छ मूर्ति चोरी र मूर्ति फिर्ता। नेपालमा लिच्छवी कालदेखि मूर्तिहरू बन्दै गए। यो नेपाल खाल्डो जसलाई सोनिग भनिन्छ, नेपाल मण्डल भनिन्छ, ती मूर्तिहरू ढलोटका, ढुङ्गाका, काठका मूर्तिहरूमा कारिगरहरूले काठमाडौँ उपत्यकाको त्यो उचाइको सभ्यता दर्शाउने गरिकन मिठो मसिनो काम गरे र संसार सामु पछि गएर प्रख्यात हुन पुग्यो। कहिले त भन्दाखेरि 7 साल पश्चात जब नेपाल संसारको लागि खुला भयो र त्यति बेला नै संसारले बुझ्न गयो कि विश्वकै राम्रो कलाकृतिमध्ये काठमाडौँ उपत्यकाका शताब्दीौँ अघिका कारिगरहरूले उत्पादन गरेको, बनाएको, निर्माण गरेको देवदेवीका मूर्तिहरू रहेछन्। यतिसम्म उहाँहरूले संसारका कलेक्टर, म्युजियमहरूले बुझेसम्म त ठिकै थियो, तर उहाँहरूलाई आँखा लाग्यो हाम्रो भइदिए हुन्थ्यो भनेर उहाँहरूको विचार प्रष्ट हुने बित्तिकै एउटा चोरीको श्रृङ्खला सुरु भइहाल्यो र उति बेला बनेका, ढालिएका, कुँदिएका मूर्तिहरू बिस्तारै नेपालबाट बाहिरिन थाले। उतातिरका ठुल्ठुला नामुद कलेक्टरहरू, म्युजियमहरू, यहाँ स्थानीय चोर गुण्डाहरू बिचमा एउटा चाहिँ लिङ्क बन्न गयो, एउटा सङ्गालो बन्यो, एउटा नेटवर्क बन्न पुग्यो र नेपालमा सदियौँदेखि जो नेपालका भगवान देवदेवीहरूले पूजाआजा ग्रहण गर्थे, अक्षता, अबिर, फुल, माला, पानी ग्रहण गर्दथे, अब एक्कासी यिनीहरू यहाँबाट अनेक तरिकाले चोरी भएर विदेशिएर पश्चिमा म्युजियमहरूमा या कलेक्टरहरूको घर घरमा, बैठक कोठामा, स्पटलाइटमा चिरच्याट चिल्लो सफा गरेर आर्ट अब्जेक्टमा परिणत भए। उता गएर कलेक्टर्स आइटम, आर्ट, कला, यही कुरालाई चाहिँ नि हामीले अब कसरी हेर्न पर्यो भनेदेखि पश्चिमा मुलुकमा पुगेका मूर्तिहरू कहाँ छन् पत्ता लगाउनु पर्यो, अवस्था के छ पत्ता लगाउनु पर्यो, हामीले पत्राचार गर्नु पर्यो, यो हाम्रो हो भनिकन, अनि नेपाल फिर्ता लिएर आएर सुरक्षित हिसाबले सकेसम्म पुरानै थलोमा फिर्ता लिएर आउनु पर्यो। यो पाटन म्युजियमको सुन्दरी चोकबाट हामीहरू सुरु गर्छौँ, पाटन दरबार परिसरबाट। र यही ठाउँ पनि किन एकदमै उपयुक्त छ त भन्दाखेरि पाटनका मल्ल राजाहरूले पुज्ने यो चोक हो। वरिपरि उहाँहरूको वासस्थान थियो। यहाँ चाहिँ नि टुसा हिटी भनेपछि एकदम संसारमै मौलिक एउटा हिटी छ, ढुङ्गे धारो, जहाँबाट पानी लिएर चाहिँ नि उति बेलाका राजाहरूले पूजाआजा गर्नको लागि तल हिटीमा झर्दथे। झन्डै 400 वर्ष अगाडि सिद्धिनरसिंह मल्ल, पाटनका राजाले निर्माण गरेको यो टुसा हिटी र यो धारो, यो धारो पित्तलको र सुनको लेप लागेको 67 सालमा चोरी भयो, हाहाकार भयो, हुने नै भयो। तर सुखद खबर पनि छ कि 1 वर्षभित्र नेपाल प्रहरीले फेला पार्यो र त्यो ओरिजिनल चाहिँ नि छाउनी म्युजियममा राखिएको छ सुरक्षाको लागि भनेर। र यहाँ यो स्थलमा, यो टुसा हिटीमा नेपाली कारिगरले आजको दिन बनाएको सुतिने बेला रेप्लिका यहाँ राखिएको छ। सुन्दरी चोकको कथा चाहिँ नि रमाइलो छ, चोरी भएको वस्तु फेला पर्यो, तर हजारौँ मूर्तिहरू छन् संसारका म्युजियमभरि। कोही स्टोरेजमा राखिएका छन्, भण्डारण गरिएका छन्, थोरै देखाइएका छन्, तर हजारौँ मूर्तिहरू करिब 25वटा म्युजियममा जापानदेखि, अस्ट्रेलियादेखि, युरोपको जर्मनी, फ्रान्स, बेलायत र संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिकाका म्युजियमहरूमा छन्। हजुर, हामी पाटनको पटको टोलमा नारायण मन्दिरकै परिसरमा छौँ। यहाँ रहनुभएको पुरानो मूर्ति लक्ष्मीनारायण या वासुदेव कमलाजाको चोरी सन् 84 मा भयो। यो मूर्ति चोरी हुनुको दिन रात तपाईँ सम्झिनुहुन्छ? बताइदिनुहोस् न।
यो चोरेको त थाहा छैन। हामी चाहिँ बाह्र यस्तो घुम्न आउने बेलामा, दर्शन गर्ने बेलामा नारायण देव छैन। नभएपछि यसको बेला कसले लग्यो कसले राम्रो थाहा छैन।
एउटा सदबीज भन्ने एउटा अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय लिलाम संस्था छ, जसले चाहिँ नि किमतीका मूर्ति र अरू खालका चाहिँ नि कलाकृतिहरूलाई चाहिँ नि लिलाम गर्छ। उसको क्याटलगमा हाम्रो यहाँको चाहिँ नि लक्ष्मीनारायण 4 वर्षपछि सन् 90 मा र यो बेचबिखनको लागि तयार छ भनिकन 30 देखि 40 हजार अमेरिकी डलर प्राइस तोकेर चाहिँ नि डिस्प्ले भयो र हामीले बुझेसम्म चाहिँ नि त्यो बिक्री भयो। त्यसपछि कता हो हामीलाई थाहा छैन।
डालास म्युजियम अफ आर्ट्स पुगेको थिएँ 2010 मा। त्यहाँ जाँदाखेरि एउटा सेक्सनमा चाहिँ नि मैले के देखेँ भने यो मूर्तिहरू त धेरैवटा मूर्ति देखेँ त्यहाँ। त्यो मूर्ति चाहिँ नि अब कतै नेपालकै त होइन यो भनेर मनमा लागेको थियो त्यो बेला, 2-3वटा मूर्ति। अनि पछि जब यो एरेन थम्सनको त्यो आर्टिकल र त्यो सबै कुरो देख्दाखेरि त त्यहाँ देखेको मैले मूर्ति त आफ्नै ठाउँको रहेछ। अहिले आउँदाखेरि के लाग्छ भनेदेखि हाम्रा पुर्खाहरूले त्यस्तो मिहिनेत गरेर बनाएर गएको चिजहरू अब हामीले यहाँ ल्याउन पायो भने त हुन्छ भन्ने त्यो चाहिँ पक्कै पनि त्यो मनमा लागेको छ र यहाँ स्थानीय जनताको पनि सबैको भावना त्यही नै छ। यदि त्यसलाई हामीले सक्यौँ भनेदेखि ल्याएर राख्नुपर्छ। एउटा त्यसले चाहिँ उदाहरण पनि एउटा बन्छ।
अब गर्ने तरिका चाहिँ नि के त? अब यसको लागि तपाईँलाई के लाग्छ?
हामी सबै तयार छौँ। अब सुरक्षा दिने हिसाबले पहिले जस्तै यो हामीले धेरै ठाउँमा देखाएको छौँ। त्यो चाहिँ गुड इन्टेन्सन ब्याड रिजल्ट भनेर भन्छौँ। अब त्यो सुरक्षा दिने हिसाबले चाहिँ फेन्स जस्तो बनाएर राख्ने त्यस्तो काम चाहिँ हामी गर्दैनौँ।
यो मूर्ति चाहिँ नेपालमै फिर्ता गराउन सकिन्छ भन्ने कुरा सुनिसकेपछि त औधी खुसी लाग्यो। सकिन्छ भने त अब हामी यही मन्दिरमा चाहिँ पुनर्स्थापना चाहिँ गरौँला, हामी चाहिँ यसको सुरक्षा गरौँला भन्ने चाहिँ हामीलाई लागेको छ।
लक्ष्मीनारायणको मूर्ति भनेर यो टोर्नबाट देखाउँछ। यता भाग नारायण आदि, यता भाग लक्ष्मी। नारायण लक्ष्मी, नारायणको बाण गरुडा, लक्ष्मीको बाण कछुवा। यस्तै यहाँ तल पनि यस्तै दिएको हुन्छ। त्यो मूर्ति भित्रको यहाँ यस्तै हुन्छ, गरुडा कछुवा।
आज जब हामी चाहिँ नि भन्दैछौँ कि नेपालका मूर्ति चोरी भए फिर्ता लिएर आऊ भन्ने, त्यति बेलामा हामीभन्दा धेरै अगाडि कसले त विचार गरिरहेको थियो भन्दाखेरि म सबैको नाम त भन्न सक्दिनँ यहाँलाई, मैले पनि सबैजनाको नाम चिन्दिनँ होला, तर मैले जाने जतिको नाम यहाँहरू सामु र उहाँले गरेको कुरा यहाँहरूलाई म प्रस्ट्याउँछु। टेड रिकार्डी भन्ने अमेरिकी एन्थ्रोपोलोजिस्ट हुनुहुन्थ्यो। उहाँले सन् 60-70 को दशकमा काठमाडौँ उपत्यकामा बसेर चाहिँ नि अनुसन्धान गर्ने क्रममा, उहाँको विषय अरू नै थियो, तर उहाँले प्रष्ट देख्नुभयो मैले भन्ने गरेको चोरीको श्रृङ्खला। रमेश ढुङ्गेल नेपालका प्रबुद्ध इतिहासकार, उहाँले लस्ट हेरिटेज अफ हिन्दू एन्ड बुद्धिस्ट आर्ट एट द मेट्रोपोलिटन म्युजियम इन न्युयोर्क सिटी भनेर किताब लेख्नु भएको छ। नेपालका चर्चित वास्तुविद र सम्पदामा विशेष चासो राख्ने व्यक्तित्व हुनुहुन्छ रविन्द्र पुरीजी भक्तपुरमा। उहाँले पनि के गर्नुभएको छ, आफ्नै तवरमा म्युजियम अफ स्टोलन आर्ट भनेर नेपालबाट चोरी भएर लोप भएका मूर्तिहरूको कपी बनाएर, रेप्लिका बनाएर एउटा पुरै म्युजियमै खडा गर्नुभएको छ।
हाम्रो म्युजियम चाहिँ एजुकेसनल पनि होस् भनेर स्पेसली विद्यार्थीहरू अथवा हिन्दू धर्म, बुद्ध धर्मको बारेमा थाहा नभएकाहरूलाई चाहिँ एजुकेट गर्ने हिसाबले पनि हामीले विभिन्न किसिम भेराइटीका मूर्तिहरू पनि चाहिँ छानेका छौँ, ताकि चाहिँ यो के को मूर्ति हो, यसको अर्थ के हो भन्ने कुरा एजुकेट गर्ने हाम्रो त्यो पनि चाहिँ विचार छ। र त्यसदेखि बाहेक भ्यालुएबल होइन, जुन चाहिँ जस्तै भनौँ न ब्रह्माको मूर्ति भनेको एकदमै रेयर हुन्छ होइन, त्यस कारण त्यस्तो एकदम रेयर टाइपका मूर्तिहरू पनि हामीले छानेका छौँ।
यस्तै रोशन मिश्रजी तारागाउँ म्युजियमसँग आबद्ध हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँले ग्लोबल नेपाली म्युजियम भनेर एउटा वेबसाइटै खडा गर्नुभएको छ। एउटा खालको क्याटलग त्यहाँ प्रस्तुत छ, जसमा चाहिँ नि चोरी भएको नभएका मूर्तिहरू सबै राखिएका छन् सकेसम्म। अफसोसका साथ मैले तपाईँहरूलाई भन्नुपर्छ, दुईजना व्यक्तित्व जससँग हामी मिलेर यो मूर्ति फिर्ता ल्याउने अभियान चालु गर्छौँ भनेर भनेका थियौँ, उहाँ गत 3 वर्ष यता हामीसँग रहनु भएन। एक दिना बाङ्देल, उहाँ चाहिँ नि अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय तवरको आर्ट क्युरेटर हुनुहुन्थ्यो, उहाँ बित्नुभयो अल्पायुमै। त्यस्तै नेपालकै पुरातत्त्वविद शुक्रसागर श्रेष्ठजी, उहाँ पनि हामीसँगै मूर्ति फिर्ता लिएर आउने अभियानमा अगाडि बढिसक्नु भएको थियो। मूर्ति चोरीको कुरा गर्दाखेरि हामीले दुईजना व्यक्तित्व सबैभन्दा अगाडि राखिकन सम्झनै पर्छ। एकजना जर्मन नागरिक युर्गेन शिक, एकजना हाम्रै नेपाली कलाविद, आफै कलाकार र संस्कृतिविद लयनसिंह बाङ्देल। उहाँहरू दुवैजनाले जति बेला सन् 70 को अन्त्यतिर नेपालमा चोरीको श्रृङ्खलाले रफ्तार लिन थाल्यो, मोमेन्टम लिन थाल्यो, त्यति बेला उहाँहरू दुवैजनालाई त्यति बेलामा एक आपसलाई चिन्नु हुँदैन थियो। होइन, यो तस्बिर खिचिकन यो चोरी हुनलाई रोक्नु पर्यो। एक त तस्बिर खिचेपछि चोरी भइहाल्यो भनेदेखि प्रमाणको रूपमा प्रयोग भयो, त्यसको साथसाथै तस्बिरै हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ नि मान्छेलाई चाहिँ नि चोरी हाल्न गाह्रो हुन्छ कि भनेर उहाँहरू दुवैजनाले एउटा डकुमेन्टेसन कार्यमा लागि पर्नुभयो। उहाँहरूको कृतिलाई हामीले यो मूर्ति फिर्ता अभियानको लागि चाहिँ नि हाम्रो लागि चाहिँ नि महत्त्वपूर्ण साधन, रिसोर्स रहन्छन्। युर्गेन शिकको द गड्स आर लिभिङ द कन्ट्री, आर्ट थेफ्ट फ्रम नेपाल। लयनसिंह बाङ्देलको स्टोलन इमेजेस अफ नेपाल। मूर्ति चोरीको श्रृङ्खला सुरु भएको त सन् 60 को दशकमै थियो। नेपाल संसारमा को सामु खुला हुनु 7 सालको पश्चात, तर पनि 80 देखि 84 सम्म धेरै भएको भनिन्छ। हामी धन्य छौँ कि त्यही बेलामा नै तस्बिर खिच्नु अगाडि अग्रसर थिए युर्गेन शिक र लयनसिंह बाङ्देल। धेरै खालका मूर्तिहरू चोरी भएका छन्, तर अहिले ढुङ्गामा कुँदिएका मूर्तिहरूको मात्रै कुरा गरौँ। ढुङ्गा कुँदिएका मूर्तिहरू जति छन् ससाना हुँदैनन्, ठुल्ठुलै हुन्छन्। यिनीहरू चाहिँ नि सार्वजनिक थलोमा पाइन्छन्, बहालमा, चौरमा, गल्लीमा, सडक छेउ, चौबाटोमा। यी मूर्तिहरू कसैको चाहिँ स्वामित्व नहुने मूर्तिहरू कतै छन् संसारमा भनेदेखि म्युजियमहरूमा यिनीहरूलाई हामीहरू निसन्देह चोरी भएको भनिहाल्न सक्छौँ। बरु चोरी नभएको भन्ने प्रमाण कसैले दिनुपर्छ, नत्र स्वतः सिद्ध छ कि चोरी भएका हुन्। किनभनेदेखि सार्वजनिक थलोबाट टिपेर लगेको, कसैको घरमा या कुनै व्यक्ति या समुदायले बेचेको होइन या दिएको होइन, प्रमाणित छ। अब मूर्तिहरू जब बनाइन्थे, प्राण प्रतिष्ठा गरेर चाहिँ नि आफ्नो ठाउँमा राखिन्थे, त्यति बेलामा कसैको पनि मनमा थिएन होला 2 दशक अगाडि, 4 दशक अगाडि, 8 दशक अगाडि, 1000 वर्ष अगाडि कि यसलाई त कसैले चोरी गर्छ भनेर। त्यसैले कसैले यसलाई बाँधेर एङ्कर गरेर राख्ने विचारै गरेनन्। चोरहरूलाई यति सजिलो, कसैले पनि विचार नगरेको कुरा उनीहरूले गर्न पुगे। थपक्कन गयो, टिप्यो, बोकेर हिँड्यो। नेपालको अवस्थामा हेरौँ, जब मन्दिरमा भगवान अवस्थित हुनुहुन्छ, बेलुकासम्म रातभरिमा चोरी हुन्छ, बिहान पूजा आजा गर्न आउने स्थानीय भक्तजनको सामु एउटा खाली ठाउँ छ। त्यो पेडेस्टलबाट भगवान अन्त लागिसकेका हुन्छन् चोरी भएर। त्यति बेलाको चाहिँ नि एउटा सांस्कृतिक क्षयको अन्दाज पनि हामी गर्न सक्दैनौँ।
अर्काको ठाउँको देउता चोरेर लगेपछि रिस आउँछ नि, कुन चाहिँ कस्तो मान्छेले लगेको, कसरी बोकेर लग्यो भनेर हामीले भन्छौँ नि। हामी
नेपाली संस्कृतिलाई कमजोर बनाउने विभिन्न कारणहरू छन्। आधुनिकीकरण भनौँ, सहरीकरण भनौँ, तर हाम्रो संस्कृति कमजोर हुने एउटा पाटो चाहिँ यो हामीले बिर्सनुहुन्न कि जब मूर्ति चोरी हुन्छ, यससँग सम्बन्धित धेरै कुराहरू हुन्छन् जो पनि लोप हुन्छन्। जस्तै पूजा सकियो, जात्रा सकियो, मानिसको मनमा रहने आस्था त्यो मूर्तिप्रति, तसर्थ मूर्ति जब जान्छ त्योसँग धेरै कुराहरू जान्छ। अब सबै कुरा हामी फिर्ता ल्याउन नसकौँला, समाज पनि बदलिसक्यो, तर पनि 2 दशक 3 दशक मूर्ति बाहिर छ भनेदेखि त्यो मूर्ति फिर्ता ल्याएर थलोमै राख्दाखेरि एउटा ऐतिहासिकताको पुनर्जन्म हुन्छ त्यो ठाउँमा। यी मूर्तिहरू चोरी भएका हुन् भनेर यदि कुनै कलेक्टर या म्युजियमले थाहा पायो भनेदेखि उनीहरू के गर्दछन् त भन्दाखेरि पहिलो कुरो त लुकाउँछन्। त्यसको मतलब नै के भयो भनेदेखि चोरी भएको हुनाले उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ त्यो देखाइहाल्न मिलेन नि, किन लुकाउन नत्र भए। एक अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय मान्यताहरूमा पनि फेरबदल आइसकेको छ। अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय मान्यताले के भन्दछ र युनेस्कोको एक पदाधिकारीले मलाई बताएका पनि छन्, मूर्ति चोरी भएको नथा पाइकन आफ्नो कलेक्सनमा ल्याए तापनि त्यो चोरी भएको पत्ता लाग्यो भनेदेखि फिर्ता दिनैपर्छ। यस्तै एउटा मिठो सन्दर्भ के छ भनेदेखि जो कलेक्टरहरू छन् पश्चिमा मुलुकहरूमा, जब उहाँहरूलाई पत्ता लाग्छ कि यी चोरी भएका हुन्, मागेको सन्दर्भमा उनीहरू दिन तयार हुन्छन् या नमागिकन पनि उनीहरू चाहिँ नि फिर्ता दिन तयार हुँदा रहेछन्। यसको प्रमाण चाहिँ नि छाउनीको राष्ट्रिय सङ्ग्रहालय नेसनल म्युजियममा रहेका केही फर्केर आएका देवदेवीहरू छन्।
यो 4वटा 2056 सालमा अमेरिकाबाट फिर्ता भएको छ। ती मूर्तिहरू कुनै पनि उसमा म्युजियममा नभइकन विभिन्न स्थानबाट चोरी भएको भन्ने कुराहरू प्रमाणित भएको छ। जस्तै अब 12औं शताब्दीको सरस्वतीको शिर, जुन शिर मात्र काटेर लगेको थियो, त्यो चाहिँ फर्पिङको कमल पोखरीबाट लगिएको भन्ने कुराहरू प्रमाणित हुन आएको छ। त्यस्तै चाहिँ स्थानक बुद्धको मूर्ति भिन्चेबाल, काठमाडौँको भिन्चेबालबाट चोरी भएको थियो। अनि पनौती त्रिवेणी घाटबाट सूर्यको मूर्ति चोरी भएको भन्ने छ, जुन चाहिँ 14औं शताब्दीको आकलन गरिएको छ। त्यस्तै विष्णुको मूर्ति ह्युमर फलबाट चोरी भएको थियो, जुन 10औं शताब्दीको आकलन गरिएको छ। ती चारैवटा मूर्तिहरू अमेरिकाबाट 2056 सालमा फिर्ता भएको। यो जम्मै मूर्तिहरू फिर्ता आइसकेपछि नेपाल सरकारले राष्ट्रिय सङ्ग्रहालयमा पहिलोपल्ट त्यहाँ चाहिँ हामी इन्ट्री गर्छौँ। त्यसपछि यी मूर्तिहरूलाई चाहिँ विभिन्न माध्यमबाट यदि कोही कुन ठाउँबाट लगिएको हो ती ठाउँबाट पुनर्स्थापना गर्न चाहन्छ भने सम्बन्धित अथोरिटीहरूले हाम्रो प्राचीन स्मारक संरक्षण ऐनमा व्यवस्था भएअनुसार माग गर्यो भने ती क्राइटेरियाहरू पुरा भयो भने हामी फिर्ता गर्ने पनि गरेका छौँ। फर्पिङमा यस्तो छ, टाउकोलाई मात्र त्यति बेला तोडफोड गरेर लगेको जस्तो देखिन्छ। त्यसको चाहिँ पुरा शरीर चाहिँ त्यही फर्पिङमै बाँकी रहेको भन्ने बुझिन आएको छ र अहिले चाहिँ त्यहाँ फर्पिङमा अरू चाहिँ नयाँ किसिमको चाहिँ टाउको मात्र मूर्ति बनाएर त्यहाँ स्थापना गरिसकेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि ती मूर्तिहरू अहिले हाम्रो राष्ट्रिय सङ्ग्रहालयमै सुरक्षित रूपमा लाग्यो। यो गौतम बुद्धको मूर्ति अति कलात्मक मूर्ति छ, जुन स्थानको रूपमा एउटा राम्रो खालको आर्टिस्टले बनाएको छ। त्यस्तै उमामहेश्वर मूर्ति पनि निकै कलात्मक छ। तर ती मूर्तिहरू कहाँबाट चोरी भएको भन्ने कुराहरू अहिलेसम्म चाहिँ थाहा हुन आएको छैन। र अमेरिकामा मैले बुझेअनुसार त्यति बेलाको उसमा चाहिँ एउटा कलेक्टरले ती मूर्तिहरू चाहिँ नेपालको चाहिँ भन्ने प्रमाणित भइसकेपछि फिर्ता दिन चाहेको हिसाबले अनि नेपाली दूतावास मार्फत समन्वय गरेर ती मूर्तिहरू फिर्ता आएको हो।
मूर्ति फिर्ता त ल्याउला, फिर्ता ल्याएपछि फेरि छाउनी म्युजियममा या अरू कुनै म्युजियममा राखिन्छ। एक हदसम्म चाहिँ ठिक छ, यो पश्चिमा मुलुकको म्युजियमभन्दा नेपालकै म्युजियममा ती मूर्तिहरूलाई फिर्ता ल्याउनु उचित। तर सबैभन्दा उत्तम त जुन थलोबाट भगवान् चोरी भएको छन्, जुन थलोबाट देवदेवीलाई उठाएर लगियो त्यही थलोमा, त्यही मन्दिरमा, त्यही चोकमा मूर्ति फिर्ता लिएर आइनुपर्छ छ।
अब मान्छेहरूले सुनेको अब पातनमा राखेको छ भनेको पनि सुनेको छ, अरूले हेरेको छ होला नि। अब हामीले थाहा छैन, पातनमा छ भनेको चाहिँ थाहा छ हामीले।
खास अब यो चाहिँ धुलीखेल स्थित एउटा मन्दिरबाट 1982मा चोरी भएको उमा महेश्वरको 12औं शताब्दीको मूर्ति हो। यो मूर्ति चाहिँ 1 लाख डच मार्कमा चाहिँ नि बिक्रीको लागि अक्सनमा राखियो अनि त्यसपछि एउटा सङ्ग्रहालयले यसलाई किनेर यो प्रदर्शनमा राखिएको रहेछ। पाटन सङ्ग्रहालयले नै त्यसको पहल गरेको हो यो मूर्ति फिर्ता ल्याउनको लागि। अनि यस्ता मूर्तिहरू चाहिँ लगेर यथास्थानमा सुरक्षासहित पुनर्स्थापना गर्न सकेको खण्डमा त्यो चाहिँ नि राम्रो कुरा हो।
मूर्ति फेरि धुलीखेलमा ल्याउने कुरा थियो, तर अब तपाईँको यहाँ ल्याएर फेरि चोरी भयो भने के गर्ने, त्यो एउटा ठुलो समस्या। अब कसले लग्यो भन्ने, अनि त्यो राम्रो व्यवस्थित नभएसम्मको लागि स्थगित राखेर पछि हामी त्यो लिएर आउँछौँ होइन। यहाँको मेयर साहेबले पनि इन्ट्रेस्ट लिनुभएको छ।
कुरा भइरहेछ। हाम्रो मेयर साहेबले त गएर चाहिँ जिम्मा लिएर आउँछ। यो अब मेन यो मन्दिर बनाइसकेपछि अनि सेभ गरेर चाहिँ अब ढोकासोका राखेर अब अलि बलियो गरी राखेर होइन गर्छ। अब त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ अब बिगबिगै थियो मूर्तिहरू चोर्ने, मन्दिरहरूको देउताहरू चोर्ने त त्यो बेलामा त धेरै बिगबिगी नै थियो नि। अहिले त त्यस्तो छैन, सुन्ने छ।
नेपालको संस्कृति अनगिन्ती कारणले कमजोर हुँदै गएको छ। परम्परागत तौर तरिकाहरूमा फेरबदल आएका छन् द्रुत गतिमा। संस्कृति कमजोर हुने एउटा कारण त हाम्रो देवदेवीहरू, भगवानहरू विदेशिनु पनि हो। यदि हामीले यी भगवानहरूलाई ठाउँ ठाउँबाट फिर्ता लिएर आयौँ र हामीले पुरानै ठाउँमा थलोमा राख्न सफल भयौँ भनेदेखि मलाई लाग्दछ हाम्रो संस्कृतिको पुनर्जागरणको एउटा बाटो पनि त्यही हो। आश गरौँ कि पटको टोलको लक्ष्मीनारायण फर्केर आउनेछन् डालस म्युजियमबाट, पटको टोलमै आउनेछन् र त्यो कार्यसहित स्थानीयहरूको पनि मनमस्तिष्कमा एउटा मलम लागोस्, सांस्कृतिक मलम, र त्यो उदाहरणले हामीहरू सबैलाई अन्यत्र पनि जागरुक बनाइदियोस् कि हाम्रा चोरी भएका देवदेवतालाई आफ्नै थलोमा फिर्ता लिएर आउँ। Okay, viewers of Saglo Samaj video magazine, we have with us Joy Lynn Davis, who is an artist. She is from California in the United States, presently living in Sweden, and she has followed the theft of idols from Nepal to the west, mainly to the west. It's an intense investigation that she has been doing, even though she started out as an artist who came to Kathmandu, saw the loss of art, the statuary that were placed in various pedestals centuries ago, and suddenly those pedestals were empty. So she got interested in painting the art in the places where they have been lost, the statues in the places where they had been taken from. But then beyond that, what I know personally is that essentially Joy became a Secret Service agent, like a sleuth, investigating and locating and looking out for stolen statues from Kathmandu Valley around the world. But before we go into that, I wanted to ask you, Joy, directly about the story that we are following right at the front of this program, which is the lost statue of Lakshmi Narayan. Vasudeva, or Narayan, Vishnu, and his consort, Lakshmi. I wanted you to share with us why you got interested in this statue and how you located it. Please.
Okay. I painted the painting of Lakshmi Narayan in 2013. At the time, I was living in Patan, and I was an artist in residence with Kathmandu Contemporary Art Center with a studio in Patan Museum. So nearly every day, I walked past the Narayan temple where the Lakshmi Narayan Murti had been stolen from in 1984. But I think I actually decided to paint that particular Murti after a conversation with you, Kanak. And at that time, we knew that it was stolen in 1984 and it had been sold by Sotheby's in New York in 1999, but no one knew where it had ended up after that sale in New York. The sale information was private. After I completed the painting of Lakshmi Narayan, about a year and a half later, the way that I found the Murti in the Dallas Museum was pretty wild. About once a month throughout the time that I did this research and painting project, I would do a Google Images search, simple online search, or I would sleuth through online collections, databases that museums have of their collections to see. I would look for sculptures that had been stolen from Nepal, and I was building a database of all of these sculptures. At the time, I was actually building two databases then, one database of everything that had been stolen from Nepal and a separate database of where these sculptures and cultural heritage objects had actually ended up. So in one of these Google Images searches, I saw a blurry image of Lakshmi Narayan, and my heart just jumped. I knew immediately it was the same Murti. I had just spent 5 months staring at the auction photo in order to make the painting. And the blurry image that I found on Google Images was taken by a Nepali blogger who was living in the Dallas area at the time. And the blogger had been to an event at the Dallas Museum of Art and had photographed the murti and put the image on the blog. Innocent enough, the blogger didn't know that it was stolen, of course, but I made that connection that it was the same one, and I think that I told you and Dina Bungdell first the exciting news that I had found it. But this was in 2015, and shortly after the earthquake happened, and we all got completely, just our focuses, our priorities really shifted. And then shortly after, of course, sadly, we lost Dina Bungdell. So I don't know if she was ever able to speak with the museum curator like she intended to. But then in 2017, I took part in a conference at Washington and Lee University in Virginia, a conference about the ethics of the trade of cultural heritage objects. And I presented this particular murti, the Lakshmi Narayan murti, as an example. There I met Erin Thompson, professor of art crime. She's the one who penned the fantastic article in Hyperallergic that actually called out the museum for exhibiting the Lakshmi Narayan murti.
So let me just, Joy, let me hold you there and let me ask a couple of questions and then we'll go back to the flow. One is, you were then looking at thousands of images trying to locate stolen art objects and statuary from Nepal, thousands, and you saw this blurry image, but because you had been actually painting it as an artist, it caught your attention immediately, which a lay person looking for images might not have. So it was a coincidence that you had actually already painted the Lakshmi Narayan Murti for your the collection that you have painted, and that's how you knew it. If you had not done that, you may not have recognized it yourself.
Exactly. So it was, for me, it was pretty extraordinary to have found that particular murti, an image of it online after having completed the painting. The other coincidence in the story is that my family actually lives just outside of Dallas, and I had just been in Dallas. And so I had been several times so many times so close to the murti without realizing it.
Wow. The statue might have been doing some transcendental communication with you for being so close. Let us assume that that happened. Now let's go to Erin Thompson, the professor who has made it her scholarly work to follow the idea and the whole concept and campaign of restitution of stolen art and the ethics related to the theft of ancient statuary from societies that have already lost their old cultures, or societies like Nepal that have a living culture where those statues continue in veneration till this date. Erin Thompson wrote an article where she interviewed you. And that is the article that she put up on a tweet, and the Dallas Museum folks saw that tweet and got alerted. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, so where are we vis-a-vis this particular Lakshmi Narayan Murti today?
It's been a great privilege of mine to be able to collaborate with the FBI to give them all the information all the research that I had done about the murti and information about where it had been published and which laws protected it and photographs of the temple and such. And my understanding is that the museum was not immediately willing to return the murti. And so the FBI was forced to build a very strong case against the museum. And the latest that I have heard, it isn't completely official yet, but that Nepal has won this case and that the murti will be seized by the FBI and then returned to Nepal. Wonderful news for Nepal, of course.
Joy, you have given us wonderful news. Thank you for this, firstly for this information, and secondly for the effort that you have put in digging into recognizing, locating the image and digging in further and providing the information. Thank you, Joy.
Kanak, thank you. It's been honestly the greatest privilege of my life to take part in this. And the day that the Murti comes back to Nepal will be the happiest day of my life. I want to be there for that party. I also want to say that so many people have worked so hard on this, and organizations as well. I know the DOA and many people in Nepal, other researchers, activists. I know you have worked on this, and many people, of course, before us that made this research happen.
Let me talk, therefore, now a little bit to seek your reaction and advice regarding what I think is required. What we have seen, Joy, is that if you place enough information about theft before the collector or the museum, they are shamed into firstly hiding those objects and secondly agreeing to return. Would you agree with that assessment of mine?
I absolutely agree with you. I have seen that there are many sculptures, unfortunately, around the world that are from Nepal, known to have been stolen, and sadly are living now in warehouses, in storage facilities that auction houses own, and that museums own. And it's very unfortunate that they have been trapped in this kind of in between purgatory place. We need to, I think, get the word out that, of course, Nepal is ready to accept them, and that they will be welcomed with open arms, and they will be well taken care of by the people and government of Nepal, and that it's safe for them to go back. And I think the ideal situation would be if museums would be willing to return them voluntarily. And we can facilitate that, of course. We can provide them with, we can have replicas made for them. We can document the story of the sculpture's return to Nepal, and share with them the information about the cultural significance of these objects. And I think museum goers, especially visitors, would find that much more interesting than staring at a murti that's completely out of context. And of course, for the sculptures that are in storage facilities and are known to have been stolen, they have no resale value. No one will buy them. Their value right now is hidden. They're hidden in these storage places. But of course, the value in Nepal remains. They have great cultural significance to the Nepali people, and are part of Nepal's sense of identity and pride.
Let me now come to the end, Joy, and lead our audience towards your artwork, because what I have thought of doing, even while speaking to you, is towards the end of this Saglo Samaj video magazine, I propose that we will show your artwork, your highly realistic art of stolen statuary from Nepal, where what you have done is placed the stolen statues which are in some other place overseas, brought them back in your imagination, painted them in gold into the landscape that is very realistic of present day spaces from where they were stolen. I find that an interesting exercise. We will show, with your permission, the audience your entire oeuvre, your entire collection at the end of this program. But for now, would you, with your permission, firstly, may I have your permission for that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Now I would ask you to tell us why you painted the way you did.
Well, the big goal of this project was to increase public awareness of the problem of illicit trafficking from Nepal, illicit trafficking of cultural heritage. and to highlight the research that had been done. But the other goal was to recontextualize the stolen sculptures. And by that, I mean that when I, as a Westerner, went to museums in the West, I would see these sculptures completely out of context. They were clean, washed clean, and the text shown alongside the Murti often just says the name of the god, approximately how old it is, and Nepal, nothing else. And so visitors to museums could easily believe that these sculptures were dug out of the ground, by a culture that's no longer alive and thriving. And of course, that's not the situation at all. So I wanted to show them put back into these beautiful spaces that they came from, with offerings of rice and flowers and tika powder and oil. And I wanted to show the dogs around the sites and the worshippers that come. And I wanted people to be able to imagine also what it would look like if they were returned and what it looked like before they were stolen.
Fact that you've done it in gold. Why have you done the stolen statuary in gold?
There were several reasons for painting the sculptures, the stolen ones, in gold. The first is that the gold becomes an easy visual language for viewers. When they look at these paintings, they can easily understand exactly what has been taken from these sacred sites. There's one painting of Saraswati where I have painted only the head in gold, and that is because the thieves were unable to take the big heavy sculpture, and so they chopped off the head and took only the head, which ended up, has an extraordinary story, ended up in the United States, and the collector returned it in the 90s. But the other reason for using gold is that the gold represents the commodification of the sacred. And what I mean by that is that we are used to seeing gold in art and on temples where the gods are present. So the gold represents the sacred. But gold also symbolizes, of course, gold symbolizes wealth, and it's used for trade. And so to paint these objects in these stolen murti, much more than objects, of course, but to paint them in 23 karat gold, for me, was to show the two types of value that they have. They have value as religious and spiritual cultural heritage objects, as living gods, as murti, and then they also have value as soon as they leave the country in terms of cold, hard cash when they end up in collectors' hands and museums' hands.
I would say there's the difference between a murti or a statue and art. Once it becomes commodified, it becomes quote-unquote art. That is why even when I speak, sometimes I make the mistake of calling them stolen art. But these are stolen statues. It's even, to make it even more real, it's stolen gods and stolen goddesses that are revered by the people.
I do the same. I use both terms because they are now both. I think they have lived in both worlds, and depending on who you're talking to, they have both.
To end this conversation, Joy, let us revert to the Lakshmi Narayan. What I see in the original photographs by Lainching Bangdel and others is a statue that has got tika and smudges all over, a little, if I might say, dirty. But then under the spotlights, including in the Sotheby's auction catalog, this is a bright, shiny black rock, all polished to a shine. And which is more important to you, Joy?
Absolutely, to see the sculpture worshipped in its original setting, in its sacred site, in the temple, where people can touch it and can converse with it and make offerings to it and do puja. There, I think it's transformed into so much more than a beautifully carved black rock. And these these murti will always have so much more value in their original settings, where they're connected to not only the rituals and the culture, but also to the history and to a lineage of people who have touched them and done puja and worshipped them for hundreds of years. That value will always be so much greater than the value as a beautiful carved stone in a museum.
So, Joy, we know that these statues of gods and goddesses are stolen from a living culture on the Nepal side. But the reason they are stolen and taken overseas is because over there they got value, they got market value. And so what should we do to ensure that that market value is devastated so that they don't get stolen here? What can be done?
That's a great question. I think it's really important to see the whole big picture of this, and I don't want Nepalis to feel bad, to ever feel bad that they weren't able to protect their gods. This problem was not started by Nepal or Nepalis. This problem was started by Videshis like me, who came in and wanted to own these objects, and that was wrong. They gained market value abroad. They were safe for hundreds of years in their shrines until Videshis came and wanted to own them. And I think that the only way to bring down that market value is to increase the awareness about both the problem of the thefts, of illicit trafficking of cultural heritage, and to increase awareness about the cultural significance of these murti in Nepal.
Okay. Not only the statues that are on display, but the many more statues that are in storage, and some of them that are in storage because the museum knows they are stolen, so it doesn't want to talk about it. It is tight-lipped. So we have a lot of investigations and sleuthing yet to do ahead of us.
We do have a lot of work ahead of us, but I feel like now the road has been paved, and now we all know the channels of how to get the murti returned to Nepal. So I believe that this Lakshmi Narayan murti and the recent returns by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, that this is just the beginning, and there will be more.
Well, Joy Lynn Davis of California, presently living in Sweden, I know your heart is in Kathmandu. With the gods and goddesses that you have painted. So let me thank you for the effort, the successful effort in thus far of identifying the Lakshmi Narayan Murti in the Dallas Museum, ensuring that helping ensure that it will ultimately be returned to its home place. We on our part will work to make it happen. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you. I'll continue to work for that effort as well. I'm so happy to share with you this series of paintings I have created of the stolen murti from the Kathmandu Valley. In these paintings, I show both the sculptures that have been stolen, and those are shown in 23 karat gold, and then the lively settings that they were stolen from, these beautiful temples and shrines. And so everything that you see in color in the paintings is painted exactly as I saw it and photographed it. I carefully copied every brick and every crack in the stone and every offering that you have made to these gods. alongside the paintings, then, when I exhibit them, I show the research, the historical photos of the thefts, and the photos of where the objects are now in museums, along with the information about the sculptures and short interviews from people that I was able to speak with in Kathmandu about these murti.